All right. So what law did Jesus abolish? He abolished the oral law. He totally dismissed it and said it's not important. Now it got him killed because by this time they had placed their interpretation of the law on a par with the written law. Their oral law was so special to them because that's how they achieved their righteousness, was through this oral law. And it was so dear to them that when Jesus comes along and says, it's useless, it's worthless, well, they got mad and killed him. Really? Let's notice Galatians 2 and verse 16. It says, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith of Jesus Christ, even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, not by the works of the law, for by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. Now, what you got to understand is this. The oral law this is how they achieved their righteousness. In other words, they actually believed that they could keep this law perfectly, the oral law, the tradition of the elders. And if they did, that's how they achieved their righteousness, their self-righteousness, and they didn't need a Savior. Are you with me? They didn't need a Savior. All right? Now, it's true that no law can make you right in God's eyes. That's not the purpose of the law. The purpose of the law is to define what is sin, to show us what sin is. That's the purpose of the law. But here's my point. There are all kinds of religious people who think Jesus did away with all law. Yeah. And they don't make the distinction that it was not God's law that Jesus did away with. Why would he do away with his own law? Can you answer that question? You know, Jesus is the God of the Old Testament. Jesus is the one who wrote the Ten Commandments with his own finger. He is the God of the Old Testament. So why would Jesus abolish his own law? Does that make any sense to you? And yet there are all kinds of religious people who are running around claiming the law's been abolished, the law's been fulfilled, and they think that Jesus did away with the Ten Commandments, the law of God, the written law of God. No, absolutely not. He did not do. What he dismissed, what he abolished, was the oral law. And what was the oral law? It was man's fence building around the law of God. It was man's interpretation of the law, all the do's and don'ts of what we can do, what we can't do. You know, you can't make love on the Sabbath day, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't walk through a field of corn and pop a few kernels in your mouth. You know, you can't do anything, you know. It was that interpretation, the oral law, that Jesus abolished. And if you don't understand this, you are an ignorant person. You will go to church, and in your ignorance, you will think, oh, so God did away with his commandments. Jesus did away with the law. Jesus fulfilled the law. Jesus nailed the law to his cross. We're not under the law. What kind of nonsense is that?
Is that really in the Bible? What you think is in the Bible is not.